If you're being honest, does your website actually sound different from your competitors? Everybody wants theirs to, but few actually do. One of the ways to change that is with tone. The tone on your website can make you distinctive, memorable, and even more trustworthy. But I found that brands, particularly B2B brands, struggle to define their tone or articulate the kind of tone they'd like to have in a way that actually makes it easier to implement. There tends to be a lot of, we want to sound different, but not a lot of specifics. One thing I found to be helpful is to visualize the tone that you want with something I call the tone grid. So let's take a look. As you can see, the x-axis is about feel. Are you going to have loose, shooting from the hip copy or tight, polished copy? The y-axis is about the attitude or character of the tone, ranging from irreverent and wacky to professional and serious. Think about it like this. The vast majority of brands are in what I call the neutral zone. Structured copy that doesn't get very loose or very tight, and while it might be warm and friendly sometimes, it doesn't really use much humor at all. It's straightforward and stays closer to professional. Next, we have the distinct zone. There's few enough brands in this zone that if you enter it, you're probably going to stand out a bit in your market. You'll have the kind of website that just feels different. And you'll notice there's a variety of areas in each quadrant you can occupy in the distinct zone, and we're going to look at some examples that showcase each one in just a minute. Finally, there's the extreme zone. This is the one area that I think B2B and B2C can differ on a little bit. It's very rare to see a B2B brand that consistently lives in the extreme zone on their website. Instead, it's kind of like finishing salt on a dish, the occasional little sprinkle here and there to really make things pop. In B2C, on the other hand, it's a little more common to find brands that really live in the extreme zone. Think of a consumer product like Tushy Bidets, who can't go 2 sentences without making a poop joke. But back to the distinct zone. This is the area most brands would love to be in. Let's look at a couple of examples, starting with Apple. Come on, man, do we really need to hear more about Apple? Why Apple? I totally hear you. The reason I want to talk about Apple is because still nearly every B2B company brings up Apple when talking about the tone or feel they aspire to have on their website. Apple is extremely influential, even though their website is focused on consumer products. That's why I think it's worth taking a quick look at how their tone actually works in practice. So first of all, Apple, much like every brand that lives in the distinct zone, is not just one thing when it comes to tone. What you'll find is that good brands typically have a range of tone. Different products, different areas of the website, different audiences are all going to call for different flavors of tone. But when you look at their website right now, Apple consistently occupies this area of the distinct zone. You see a lot of tight, polished, snappy copy. The headlines are typically short, punctuated phrases that range from playful to powerful, authoritative language. The body copy can get long-winded sometimes. I think that's actually a common misconception about Apple, that everything is short. Not true. But it generally always feels polished and meticulously worded. You don't find much loose, shooting from the hip kind of language like we'll see in some of the other examples. Let's take a closer look at this iPhone 15 page that's been running in the background behind me. Right away, you can see the playfulness in several of the headlines throughout the page. Dynamic Island, for when things just pop up. All new 48 megapixel main camera for breathtaking, smile-making picture taking. I can't even say this next one without feeling a little bit ridiculous, so I'm just gonna skip it. Even in the parts where they veer into more professional, straightforward language, they still sprinkle in little human-feeling lines like, "What a relief" right here. This page is a good example where you can kind of see the full range of Apple's web copy tone in one place. But what about a much different product, like Apple Card? When Apple wants someone to apply for a credit card, you can see that they veer more toward the southeastern portion of the grid. The headlines are similar structurally, but the language is much more straightforward, much less playful. The closest to playful it probably gets is here, where it says "no fees, not even hidden ones," or down here where it says "goodbye plastic, hello titanium." This makes sense given the context of the page. Okay, enough about Apple on the right side of the grid. What does the left side look like? What does loose copy actually look and sound like? I think the recently updated homepage for the chat and community platform Discord is actually a good example of this, so let's take a look. You can feel the loose tone in the headline. Group chat that's all fun and games. It's not overly formal, but it's also not super playful. It tells you what it is without the stiff, "Discord is a blank for blanks who want to blank." The contraction here with the word "that's" kind of gives it a little bit of a laid-back vibe. And you can keep feeling this loose laid-back vibe in other headlines throughout the page, like this one. hop in when you're free, no need to call, or this one, wherever you game, hang out here. And as you might expect for a platform that's designed for fun stuff, they get playful at a few points as well. Like here, where it says, or IDK, doing homework or something. Saying IDK aloud like that is the oldest I've felt in a really long time, by the way. And at the bottom of the page, we have, you can't scroll anymore, better go chat. So you can see it's a nice, loose, laid back, playful kind of contrast to the polished, snappy copy we just saw from Apple. If you want another example of good loose copy, check out the Basecamp and Hey.com homepages. I would go into more detail here, but I just did an entire video on Hey a few weeks back, so you've probably heard enough. So I hope the tone grid and these examples bring some clarity as you think about the tone you would like your brand and website to have. Two quick things to remember here at the end though. Number one, tone is not a replacement for good copy. It's something you layer on top of copy that's already hitting on the right things. There has to be substance beyond the style. Number two, tone is not the same as voice. Voice is really more about how your perspective, beliefs, values, that kind of stuff shapes your copy. Tone to me is how you then convey those things through your choice of words and style of writing. In other words, voice informs what you say, tone informs how you say it. Okay, I hope this gave you some good food for thought as you think about your brand's tone. If you have thoughts, questions, ideas, examples of tone that you've seen that you want to share, leave a comment wherever you watch this video and let me know.